Hello and welcome to the Say It Sister podcast. I'm Lucy and
I'm Karen, and we're thrilled to have you here. Our paths crossed years ago on a shared journey of self-discovery, and what we found was an unshakable bond and a mutual desire to help others heal and live their very best lives.
For years we've had open, honest and courageous conversations, discussions that challenged us, lifted us and sometimes even brought us to tears. Now we want to share those conversations with you. We believe that by letting you into our world, you might find the courage to use your voice and say what really needs to be said in your own life.
Whether you're a woman seeking empowerment, a self-improvement enthusiast, or someone who craves thought-provoking dialogue, join us as we promise to bring you real, unfiltered conversations that encourage self-reflection and growth.
So join us as we explore, question and grow together. It's time to say it, sister.
Oh, hello, everybody. We're back for another heartfelt conversation and we're delighted that you're joining us. This week, we're going to explore one of Lucy's favourite ever discussion topics, the good girl conditioning. That part of us that believes that girls are supposed to be sugar and spice and all things nice. The part that whispers no when we want to speak up for ourselves or we want to take up space or ask for what we need. And it runs deep. And for much of our lives, it's been hidden. And we want to out that today. So let's go on a little bit of a journey. Were you that teenager who rebelled? Are you now in midlife and feeling like you're in a crisis? Or are you in perimenopause like us and wondering what you need and who you are? So this week we're going to invite you to remember who you are now. Are you wearing the good girl dress? And what you're here to do and what you're here to say. Welcome, Lucy. Which dress are you wearing today? The authentic you or the good girl you?
Oh, I'm definitely authentic because I'm not even wearing any makeup today. I'm showing up full anti-good girl. And I've had a bit of a hectic morning in heady kind of work. So I'm really happy to be here reconnecting with a bit more authentic energy. And I've shared with you many times that this idea of the good girl, it just it's always been there in my mind because I don't think I've ever really felt like a good girl. I always felt like I was doing it wrong and questioning myself and trying to figure out why I don't fit in that that traditional mold. But more recently, I'm really diving really deep into it. And a couple of months ago, I went to a women's circle, and the whole topic for those couple of hours was the good girl. And during one of the activities, we all wrote a letter to our good girl with all of the messages that we received growing up. And a lot of the women were, you must this, you must that. And for me, it was all don't do this, don't do that, don't behave like that, don't speak up, don't show off. And it was like, don't. And it just made me realize that actually the conditioning I'd had was all about those don'ts. And I rarely had go be, go fly, go, and all these empowering, believing kind of messages, which it then is no surprise that I'm one of the world's biggest champions of people being magnificent and radiant in their own power. So I think it's really important to join the dots, to recognize what conditioning you may be holding, and just go on this bit of a journey with us. But before we do, I thought we better deconstruct actually what it really is. Now, I always remember growing up, there were lots of don'ts. And then I think I was really aware back then that those weren't the same don'ts that my brother or my male cousins or the boys in the schoolyard were getting. They were getting very different don'ts. So I think I was always really consciously aware of it. But it's from the moment you're born, really, probably even before you're born, you're started to be brought up in an image of what society expects you to be. So the good little girl, there, be a good girl, that mindset, that mantra that we hear is drummed into us as soon as we're born. And, research shows that the way that girls are held as babies is different to the way that boys are. Boys are thrown around a little bit more and jumped on the knee and a bit more rough handled. The girls' toys, were given tea sets and little dollies with their little outfits and nappies, whereas the boys are given trucks and swords and, building blocks and tool sets. And we were given the ballerina shoes and the little pretty outfits that were not allowed to get dirty or damaged, but the boys were given sports kits to go running around in and tracky bottoms. And I even think about, mine and my brother's bedroom. I had, I'm going to age myself now, but there was that Victoria Plum and the Pierrot bedspread that all the girls seemed to have. And then my brother got superheroes. Yeah, I was like madly into Wonder Woman and I had the outfit, but I never had the whole bedroom put to it. I don't know why, it probably just wasn't even available. And then going on, I remember late 1980s, I was just about to go up to high school and I had my hair all chopped off. It was proper Princess Diane styly, and everyone was saying, "Oh, your poor hair. Oh, I can't believe you cut it all off." And, it's all these memories that stick in my mind. It's the conditioning from TV, it's the nursery rhymes like that Sugar and Spice one. It's the story of Lilith and Eve. Yeah, so all this conditioning, I just want to make it clear that I have nothing against trying to develop good human beings, good children. The good bit, I don't really have an issue with, but I think it's when it becomes gendered and it's so subtle. And I just want everyone to be a good person, not a good girl and a good boy, and therefore it means something differently. And I know, and I look back now, and I've caught myself saying good girl to my girls. I don't know if I'd have had a boy, whether I'd have done it differently. So you probably done it with your own conditioning. So I've talked a lot. Where are you at with it, Karen?
Well, I want to say yes to all of that. And I was on a panel last week and I was talking a little bit about this, but I was talking about it from the place of emotion and how, girls are allowed to be emotional, but they're not allowed to be too emotional. And girls are not allowed to get angry, whereas it's fine for boys to get angry. And so even right down to our emotions, we're sort of selecting the ones that we can own and show and the ones that we have to distance ourselves from, suppress, and all the rest of it. So it becomes very confusing because an emotion is an emotion and it's telling us that something's happening. And, it wants our opinion. So even if we go down to that level, there is gendered emotions, which is absolutely insane to me. In my own life, I've always tried to bring in balance and choice. With my own daughter, it's the same. And when I look out there, I just see pink, or blue, which of course is a stereotype. Always try to give her choice, but ultimately she's more attracted to the pink. And that's how it is. And, she's a girly girl like me, but she's more boisterous. She's a bit wilder than I am. She's definitely like more extreme in her outward, she's more extrovert than me as well. So I look at her and I'm like, there she is doing her thing. But when I get triggered, normally through a safety issue or something like that, because I want her to be able to run wild and have those experiences. I don't want her to be contained. But I also want to teach her the right things. So it's like that balance between the two, which can be quite complex as a mother, that I pull Rich in as my husband and say, okay, can you go to this with her? Do you want to take her climbing today? So they go off together and they have that experience together, and I don't need to be part of that. And I learned that because I just thought my nervous system is just going to be too extreme. And I don't want to pass my anxiety onto her, knowing that I already probably have passed on some of my anxiety to her. So it's like a constant checking in. Like with me, it's like, the way I was brought up was very much the good girl. And, I did my absolute best to embody that and to make that real and to become that good girl. But, I think you can get away with that kind of behavior for so long until eventually you can't contain it anymore. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. When it comes back to where I am right now, I'm definitely more of the rebel than I've ever been, but it comes from a deep place. And I feel like it's like connected to purpose. It's connected to my value. It's connected to just justice. And like, that's just not right. So I'll be a rebel with a cause, whereas before I think I was just, as I got to teenage years, I was just rebelling because the container I was in was so small and so tight that I couldn't breathe. And I feel like I am doing my best to not do that with my own child. I don't really care. This is going to sound a bit weird, but in some ways, I don't really care whether it's like the good, bad thing. I'm like, whatever, as long as she's happy and as long as she learns that she's a valued human being and that she has a voice. I think that's where I go. That these are the things that I want it to be. Obviously, I want it to be, you know, I don't want it to be a horror out there in the world doing awful things. Of course not. But there are other things that are really important that I add value to, and definitely having a voice is probably number one for me. What about you?
I I have a memory of, well, first memory is I went on a hen do in London when Bella, my eldest, was probably about a year old. And I was in, can't remember which area, but there was a really funky marketplace, and there was this handmade dress for this little girl, and it was so lovely. And it was basically an A-line cotton skirt dress, and it was black, but it had an embroidered bright yellow sunflower, which is my favourite flower. And I came home and put her in it, and she looked amazing. And I remember people like going, "You don't put girls in black." I'm like, why? It's got a huge flower on it. It's a dress. You can see it's traditionally feminine.
Yeah.
But it was like that colour. You can't give that to a girl. Yeah, I looked around and there were plenty of boys wearing black t-shirts.
Yeah.
And then years later, when Evie was probably about 6, she was mad into vampires. Now, this is a child who was all sweetness and light, and she's just a little ray of sunshine, but she went through a vampire phase, and she would only wear black for about 3 months. And again, the comment that I had about her clothes, I'm like, but she's picking them. This is what she wants to wear. She doesn't see black as anything. It's just the color of darkness. And so I let her go with it. And it was, I think it was at those points, having 2 girls, that I realized the comments that I probably had all my life, and I was hearing them through adults' ears and going, no, even things now like, oh, that don't sit like that. It's not very ladylike. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, she can sit how she wants to sit. You know what I mean? It's like all of those little things, and I guess I'm hyper aware of all of those little messages that are so flippant that we don't even realize or catch ourselves saying them. And are there any of those like comments that you can remember hearing?
I've just had a lot of conversations about be a good girl. I need you to be a good girl. It was a lot of that. So there was a pressure on it, you know, like if I'm not
Mm.
good, then then that's going to have a really big impact on my parents because they both work full time. So you know, I was brought up in a home where both parents were working, so which was gave me loads of positives, by the way, because it was like I learned to be entrepreneurial from a young age, and I wanted to earn money from a young age, and you know, I had a vision, and I knew that I would be out there and in the world doing my thing because I saw that role modeled. However, on the other side of it, it was like they were kind of dependent on me to not create any problems for them,
Mm.
so that they could then, you know, do their jobs and all the rest of it. So it was like yin and yang, I suppose, isn't it? But I feel like there was a lot of pressure on me. Like I grew up very, very early and very young anyway. And I certainly felt responsible all my life. I always felt responsible. And I didn't ever really feel like I could go wild. And the times when I did let myself go, it didn't normally go down very well. So it was almost like, okay, so this is not, you know, this is how I have to be. I have to conform. I have to do the right thing. I was a little bit like a little doll, you know, not with my friends. When I was with my friends, you know, I had freedom and I would run wild in the fields. And, you know, my mum and dad were never checking on where I was. So there was nothing like that. Like the way I am with Catalina was very different. I had my own key to the house. You know, I was just like left to my own devices in a way. So that was one thing. But then when I think about when I was with my parents, I was like a little doll. I was like, you know, I'd be there all dressed up and there was always like long hair and ribbons in my hair, and I would just sit still and just like by my mum and think I was so bored out of my mind most of the time. You know, so I've got a vivid imagination. So I'm dreaming, I'm like thinking of places I'm going to. I'm doing all of that, which I've always been a bit like that. But I really feel like I cultivated it during so much time being spent with adults as a young child going up to sort of, you know, primary school. I'm an only child as well, so there was no other children in the house. So, you know, I relied on adults a lot of the time. So it taught me good things. It also, yeah, it also, that conforming piece is so strong for me.
And I think there's something there about don't disappoint, because you know the message is don't disappoint, conform, be a good girl. And I certainly remember growing up with this fear of disappointing, to the point where even as an adult, you know, the perfectionism within me, and I'm not a perfectionist, but I always want to make sure I do my best, or make sure that work is on time, or I don't like make any mistakes because I don't want to disappoint whoever is my client, or who, if I'm looking after somebody else's child, I want to do the best as I can, because it's this fear of, again, you're not a good mum, you're not a good friend, you're not a good da 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 da, because again, it's that fear of disappointment, which again, I don't think my brother has ever demonstrated. He's a good bloke. He's morally a good bloke, but he's always put his own needs first. He hasn't had to worry in the
Yeah.
same way about disappointing the family, because I don't think he was ever given those same messages. I do remember really vividly climbing trees, playing football, and like you, just being out of the house on swinging upside down on climbing frames, long bike rides out in the countryside, building dams and getting all muddy. And I definitely wasn't in those pretty dresses then, so I obviously had play clothes as such. And my dad was a builder, and some of my earliest memories are there, helping him lay bricks and playing with the putty and the cement. And my other dad was in engineering and manufacturing, so he'd take me to the factory. I remember being in the boardroom and going, wow, I want to work here. And so I had this, they took me to places, and I don't think I was basically being groomed to be this traditional good girl. I definitely had amazing role models, but still, I think I think my mum was of the generation where, she was given pink jobs when she left school. I think she went into hairdressing, and then she did childminding, and then she became a cook at school, and eventually she turned that into her own business. So I'd see her doing all the business stuff. But again, it was still my mother's voice that I hear as the don't do this, don't do that, don't take up space, don't show off. Who do you think you are? Oh, you're being a bit loud, Lucy. It's all of those don'ts that I hear. And I know she's not against me being amazing, but again, it's that conditioning that's come down from years and years and years. And I've really tried to raise my girls to be the opposite. So every time they say they want to do something, I just say, yeah. There's no gendered stuff in there. And even like using the language of, I was at Squirrels, and we were doing like people who helped us. And one of the male leaders kept saying, be a policeman. I said, police officer. Be a fireman, be a fire officer. And I kept saying, please don't use gendered language, because it is conditioning it so, so subtly, because we are people that those young children look up to.
Well, all
Um,
the voices were it was always he's when we were growing up. There was no he, she, they, or anything like that. It was just everything you heard was through the male language and lens and pronoun. As simple as that. And my mum still uses that. So I hear it through her, and I'm always correcting her. And, it's always, if we go to the doctors, it's always a he that we're seeing. That kind of thing. I'm like, she, mum, she, so just not that she's entitled to have that say on things, but I don't want it to filter through to Catalina. So I'm very, very aware of that, and standing up for her. And I think the issue I have with the good and bad is that it's so extreme. And if you're not a good girl, then you're a bad girl.
yes.
And that puts us in a very dangerous place. And knowing that as human beings, we're all very extreme anyway. So we tend to yo-yo from one side to the next. So it's like, I definitely had this experience, good girl, good girl, good girl, doing my best. The standards are really high. Can't let it slip. I'm on that hamster wheel, and I'm managing it, and I'm managing it, and I'm managing it. And then something changes, like hormones, I hit puberty or whatever, and then it's like, can't do this anymore. Like, it's just too strong in me to go against the good girl. So I go into the rebel, and then I'm like, fuck it, which is one of my slogans. Actually has
There's no middle ground, is there?
it has fuck it for me can be quite positive, because it's like, okay, enough of that now. Fuck it, I'm not doing that anymore. However, when we go into the other extreme side of it, the yo-yo of that is so hard on our bodies. So it's like, I'm out partying Friday, Saturday. I'm doing yoga Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. By the time I get around to a Thursday again, I'm ready for another sort of like wild, rebellious sort of, getting into the weekend. That's exhausting, and that's extreme. And when we throw in like relationships, and we throw in friendships, and we throw in, work, that's a lot. And we can live in that pattern for such a long period of time. And I do believe that, for me, I was a rebel as a young person, pushing boundaries, never going too far though, because I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I like that. I like people to think nice things of me. So there's always that line for me that I know I'll never stray over that. There's like an invisible line that pulls me back. However, I can go quite far. And then the workplace, I was quite a badass. By the time I got to know what I was really doing when I was 28, I was quite a, you know, yeah, I was on the rebel side, but I was also doing great work and doing it positively. So I was quite, people say, God, you were quite scary. And now I look back and I think, God, I really wasn't inside, but that was a persona that I was, putting out into the world. And I feel like now, I'm in perimenopause. If I'm doing it, I want it to come from a good place from within me. I'm not just doing it because I'm exhausted by the good girl. I'm doing it because I feel like there's something that's being channeled that's really important that I'll stand up for. That's what's really important to me. It's the place that it comes from, that drives that drives me in a certain way. As long as it's in alignment with something that is something I value or it's serving something, doesn't matter if I'm good girl or bad girl.
Who's Karen?
Just
Who
Karen
the hell
doing
is
the thing,
anybody?
whatever.
Yeah, nobody should be judging who you are, and this is the whole point of like. So I said I don't get upset about the words good or bad because I get it when it's about morals, it's about fitting into your social circle, and our parents were doing their best, just like their parents were, and we are doing our best. But now that I'm here, in my midlife, and I'm looking at, well, who the hell gets to decide whether I'm living my life in a good way or a bad way? I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not bothering anyone. I'm happy. So I don't really care. And I think that's the bit where what my anti-good girl thing now is, because I'm getting to that midlife and I'm like, do you know what? I have spent my whole life trying to be a good ex, whatever, you fill in the dot. And we were chatting about this at our photo shoot a couple of weeks ago, where I'd worn these killer heels that I had from before COVID, and I just don't wear them anymore because they hurt. And I'm just like, yes, they're beautiful shoes, but why the hell do women conform to this? Well, it's because that's what we're told a good girl dress is like. You wear the nice dress, but you wear these really painful shoes as well because it makes you look pretty. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? And I honestly, I do think that that photo shoot that we did brought up so much good girl, bad girl conditioning for me, in so many different layered ways, even on the day when I was asked to put on certain outfits and felt great in those, but then to pose in a certain way. And I'm like, well, who the hell does she think she is? It was all going on there. What
Amazing.
was it like for you?
Do you know, it was the easiest photo shoot I've ever done. Like the build up was hard because there was so much prep and I forgot how long, these things take and the detail and all of that. So that was tough because it was a big admin challenge for me and just timing and all the rest of it. So that was hard. But when I was there, I said to the photographer afterwards, I said, never felt so myself in front of the camera. Like before I'd have been like overthinking it all and really sort of, yeah, I didn't do any of that. I actually don't. I mean, I literally like I didn't smile that much. I've used to be really smiley, and I'm not smiling anymore. I still smile, of course, and I laugh a lot. So when it comes through, I think it comes through from a really
Yeah, there
deep,
was a lot of laughter.
deep and genuine place. If I'm laughing or I'm smiling, it's because I'm really feeling it. If I'm not feeling it, I'm not doing it, and that's like a really amazing feeling for me because I've always been smiley, and the past shoots that I've done with the same photographer, she's always said, "Oh, you're always so smiley," and I'm not anymore, and I really like that about myself because that is a true reflection of how I'm feeling. I'm not masking, and I mean there'll be days when I will mask, of course. Sometimes we've got to show up, and we do that because we have to in a way to get through a situation, or so. But less of that for me, for sure, and I do feel like I got to the place where I don't know, people are just responding to me differently and they don't expect that of me because that's not how I'm showing up.
I'm so pleased because that whole give us a smile, sugar, and all of that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, it's so sickening. But I think we probably did that for many years. We wore this smile because again, that's what expected of girls. And I think that was one of the things. I'm naturally a smiley person, but equally, I like my smile. My face lights up when I smile. But I'm not always smiley. And I think it was one of those pictures where she asked me to really sit in my power. And at first, and literally it was the first shot, and I was so conscious of myself. And I was like, well, where do I put my hands? And oh my God, I'm looking very serious and stern and like and anyway, after probably 2 or 3 seconds of me feeling really uncomfortable, it felt like longer, but it was probably just 2 or 3. I just thought, hell, I'm going to go for this. And my back went straight, my shoulders went back, I raised my head, and the pictures that came back were majestic. And it was that moment when I switched from who am I trying to be to who actually am I? And that's when I said a lot of this good girl conditioning was eroded and was really coming up for me because I kept shelving it and, taking off those layers. And I had so much fun. And the pictures, honestly, they look amazing. I can't wait for us to release them into the
I'm
world.
so proud of us because I feel like there's something about coming together and doing it with someone else. Yes, it's more fun, but it can also be more challenging because you're trying to align all the time and, find where the sort of stretch is and where the challenge is. And I feel like both of us, through what we're doing together, we're having to face imposter syndrome. We're having to all these conditions that we've experienced in our lives, that some of them are still present, some are maybe not so much, or maybe they come up every now and then, such as the good girl condition and imposter syndrome. We're having to face that. And literally the only way you can do it is to go through it. You can't do it any other way. Whilst we have that awareness of that, it's so incredibly true, because for me, that imposter that kind of comes out, that's like, fake it, fake it, fake it. Don't let anyone see, because you don't deserve to be here. Now, I didn't feel that on the photo shoot, but that does come through for me, and then I start to get anxious and, my adrenaline's starting to move. And I don't know how many years I need to be doing this thing for, or how many qualifications I need to get, until I'm finally like, oh, okay, that's enough now. Like, you're here and you're at the table. And I've realized that. And there might be little things that pop up where I get nervous, which is healthy. But no more imposter syndrome, no more of this sort of playing the game. I'm not actually playing the game, I'm actually at the table.
Yes. Yeah, you are leading, and if the you leading is faking it because you're so worried about what other people are going to think and what they're going to say, and are you going to be good at this? No, just lead. Both of us have got this vision of where we want to go, and the right people will come along. And actually, if there's a load of people that don't like us, okay, and that's where the good conditioning is eroding, because before, even probably 10 years ago, we were probably still really worried about, well, what if people don't like us? We're like, good, because we're not for everybody. And I wanted to just share something with you that happened just this morning. And my eldest had got an email from her lecturer to say that there was some issue at uni, so the presentations are going to be postponed by a week. And she phoned me up in panic, but she's like, I don't know about any presentations. I haven't heard about that. What should I do? And I was like, well, I think you probably should ask questions about what presentation. Go and get some facts. Anyway, she starts writing out this email, and verbalizing it to me, which is something that a lot of Gen Z do. And they need to read it back. And she said, "Hi, I'm really sorry, but blah 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 blah." And I said, "Right, just cut the sorry, because you're not sorry. Actually, what you want is clarity." And I said, "Please, can you clarify?" Is a great opening. And she goes, "Yeah, that's good." And she read some more, and then she said, "Anyway, sorry to be inconvenient." I said, "No, you're not sorry. Say thank you for your clarification in advance." And she went like, "Wow, Mum, that sounds good." I'm like, yes, stop saying sorry just for merely asking a question. That
Own
just
it.
doesn't exist.
Own it. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like we have to own it and own ourselves and own our needs. And I think we'll be working, I see this coming all the way up, especially in perimenopause. It's becoming even more and more important that we, tune in to that point inside us where we go, okay, how am I feeling about this? What am I believing? And what do I really need to move that dial forward, or to sort of step into my power? And that's it, and it's constantly checking in with that. And then when we're losing it, it's like, okay, what just happened? Where did I go? What story am I telling myself? Because in those little stories, there's a little part of us. There's that old part of us that's still a little bit stuck, maybe. And this is when we get to sort of, open it up and go, right, is that something I need to deal with right now? Or can I do it later? Or when am I going to do that work? Because it's not going anywhere. So until we do the inner healing, and like that's why I said before, like things come up for me and it doesn't have the same intensity, but there's a fragment of something. It's really small. It's like a tiny little piece of something, like a piece of glass that's still stuck in my system. and I just need to go in and, move that thing out and almost like treat it like a bit of a wound and give it a bit of love and healing and, and honor it in a way, and then let it go and let the body do its piece to let it heal. It sounds really simple, doesn't it, when I say it like that? And in some ways it is, but I think it's the commitment to ourselves that is the bit that we need, because if we're not committed to ourselves, then it becomes hard.
And I also think it's just that it is a life stage, because I remember everyone saying, oh, life begins at 40, and I was like halfway through my 40s. I'm like, really? When's it going to get going? And now I'm towards my latter end. I'm like, now I get it. And I think it's that desire to serve is not from a good girl. You've got to be a good girl and look after everyone else's needs. You've got to, make sure you don't take up too much space, etc. And now it's like, no, I want to serve, but I want to serve from my place. And if something comes up, I'm going to stare it right in the face and say, is this mine? Do I still need it on this next, half century that I'm going to go into? And so I think there's something that shifts in your 40s. And apparently, when you get to your 50s, it's completely frigging liberating. And I
I've heard,
cannot
yeah,
wait.
I'm hearing the same thing as well, and I'm really not far away from that. I've got one more year. Well, next year I'll be 50. But the thing that's coming up for me is that I have become comfortable in saying, I really don't like that, or that doesn't work for me, or it can get stronger than that, actually.
Yeah, like a big F you.
You know what I mean? And so that's something that I always really, really struggled with all my life. It was like, even though that's what I was feeling on the inside, like, oh my God, no, absolutely no. I just didn't know how, because I was more concerned about how other people were feeling and being kind and nice to them and not upsetting someone. And that's a major thing for me. But I've definitely, as I'm looking back on my journey, as a leader, I'm now able to be like, no, that's not it. And it's taken a long time, but I just want to celebrate it, actually, because it's such a major thing for me to be able to be like, I mean, there's nice ways, you can say it in nice ways, but ultimately it's the same thing. The way we say it can be tweaked.
And that's actually a really important point. Just by saying no, or that doesn't work for me, that doesn't make you a bad girl or a bitch. There's no good or bad, remember. This is just you standing in your power and just asking for what you need or stating what you don't. It's about boundaries.
Absolutely. And it's about that truth, isn't it? And I think that we always think, you know, it's one way or the other way. But it could just be that for me, when I go into it, I go, is this like a fundamental no, or is this just a no for right now? And like I've said to you before, if I'm not in a yes, then I'm generally in a no. And it might change tomorrow. I might be like, well, today I've got a yes, because I've done a bit of work behind the scenes and I've managed to get clear and realize that it was my saboteur that was actually, leading me down a dark path. And I'm back in myself again, and I'm able to, really go, actually, it was a no yesterday, but I'm here wholeheartedly now, and I'm in a yes. So how do we move forward with that? And being able to sort of hold space for that and work with people who have got that, who are willing to be flexible. Sometimes the world won't wait for you, and things move forward without you. But then that was never right in the first place
Well,
anyway.
yeah, it's okay. Let it go.
Yeah, exactly. So this almost feels like we're doing like life lessons here.
Mm. Well, I was thinking as you were talking, like, these are amazing tips for women in their latter years, or their midlife years. But knowing what we know now about bringing children into the world, particularly girls, I'm wondering what some of those tips are in hindsight from our little bit older and wiser selves, thinking about us as kids, but also our own daughters. Um, and the first tip that I would give is just ditch the word good girl, but instead say good behavior, or rather than saying, oh, you look so pretty, just say, wow, that outfit looks really good on you. Or they do something brilliant and just say, wow, you're so clever, you're so smart, you're so brave, and really build up their character. And I think that's the one thing that wasn't a thing when my kids were small, but it's definitely much more of a thing now. And I'm like, I love this thing. Celebrate the behaviors, the person, the qualities that they are, not just their appearance.
100%. And get into details with them. give them specifics and explain things. The word I use a lot with Catalina is I'm proud. I'm very proud of you. And she's really like, what are you proud about? It's great because she asks me coaching questions all the time. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, great. And I'm proud of you for this, this, and this. I'm proud of you for saying when you feel scared. She says that a lot. She's like, I'm scared. And then it's like, right, that's okay. What do you need? And and we go through it. And she'll do it with teachers. She'll do it in the swimming classes. And then she'll jump in, but she just needs to name it. And I'm good if she jumps in or doesn't jump in, to be honest. I'm just so proud of you for naming that, because that's not, us as adults struggle to do that. So the fact that she's doing it now, I'm like, wow, that's like blowing my mind. And I can't say that I've taught her that. Maybe I have somewhere along the lines, but I think it's really her own. So it's like the level of detail. And when I was in London last week, I got her this bag, and it's a place where you can go to on Oxford Circus, and it says build your own bear. And
we love Build-A-Bear.
Yeah, and then you put a little voice note in.
Yeah.
And I just, my message was, it was all about her qualities. I didn't mention the word good once. But every single one of those qualities that I mentioned, I was like, that's her, that's totally her. And I think when we connect into somebody's spirit, and we really speak from that place, they know that you're talking to them, whether they are a 6-year-old child or a 60-year-old woman. And I think, it's a training point where we get to sort of like look at someone and go, I see your like vibrancy, or I see, like if it was you, but like, I see your smile, I see your sunshine, I see your vibrancy. And I love this about you because of how I feel when I'm with you, because of how your energy comes through. And I always feel like I've been uplifted when I spend time with you. We get into it.
Do you know what? It's so more than saying you are enough. Actually, this is saying you're more than enough. You're friggin' amazing. And how wonderful. And coming from a child who just heard don't, it's absolutely saying go be. And I think that is the best gift that you can give to any human, and especially a child. I've loved our conversation. As you know, it is one of my favorite conversations because I don't think we can ever stop having these conversations, especially when it comes to raising the next generation and breaking all of those generational curses and conditioning. And so I encourage you to do the work for breaking free from any outdated conditioning that you've had that means that you can step into the full brilliance of who you are. It isn't necessarily about being a rebel for the sake of it. It's not like throwing out, everything in your home and just starting again. Sometimes it's really subtle changes. It's about reclaiming your truth and your voice and your right to just live life on your terms without worrying about the judgment of other people. And try banishing the word good from your vocabulary, and bad if necessary. Be grumpy, be smiley, don't apologize. All in all, it's just about being you. And with that, I'm going to say, be you always, with love. So thanks for listening, and we can't wait to welcome you next time.
Until then, use your voice, journal, speak or sing out loud. However you do it, we hope you join us in
Saying It Sister.